Welcome, everybody. This is Lay of the Land Weekly Impact. I'm Jim Haviland.
I'm Kris Snyder.
And Kris, it is, what's today? I didn't write it down.
It's like August 4th or something.
It's August now. It's August 5th. I think it's August 5th.
Yeah, 5th. Jeez.
All right, great.
Look at the time.
So we're about to drop. This goes live.
Awesome.
Tonight sometime.
I'm looking forward to that.
So we can't wait to hear everyone's feedback. Please let us know how we're doing. Bare bones stuff, guys, but that was always the point. We wanted to get by you quick. So, Kris, we've got a great podcast, Lay of the Land podcast, to cover this. Number 177, Joshua Edmonds, Digital C. Kris, we got some history here.
Yeah, we do. It was fun to hear, right? Like his journey, his part of it. Like often most of the things we do, we're standing on the shoulders of giants that came before us,
Always.
the folks who built things, sacrificed things along the way. And I think that was part of what we were listening to.
Yeah, so let's first cover how cool what he's doing is, and then we'll go back over the history, right? So we want to give him props. So, covering the digital divide, solving the problem that goes all over the place. We know that the internet is infrastructure. We couldn't do any of the things we do without it, Kris.
Yeah, when it goes down, it's almost worse than electricity going out.
Yeah, and we'll cover that because it's really you lose one, you lose both mostly. But I love the way Josh was talking about really our right to it to good infrastructure like this. And I love talking about the technology. I mean, it's really cool stuff. And we go over the history a little bit. I'll let you know what the original thought on what this is supposed to be. But this notion, the Canopy product, $17 a month.
Yeah, 17, 18, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. How much do we pay?
Way too much. Way too much.
Like a couple orders of magnitude more than that. But that's what a great thing. And there's the notion that you can use the infrastructure that's already existing, and then beam it all over the place, and have very little infrastructure in house, and gives you automatic Wi-Fi. That's just brilliant to me.
Yeah, no more call before you dig moments, right? And then somebody chops a wire, something goes down, and then you're all out. So I think this ability to kind of run it up and then broadcast it and then grab it.
Especially in highly dense areas, this is really good stuff. I know this is even a version of this they do actually in rural areas where they're using backhaul, either electronics or microwaves, which we'll talk more about in a minute. And then really the fact that he's doing both infrastructure and also the education and how to use this stuff, which is really important.
Yeah, his library discussion, right, when the internet was first coming out in the 90s and how the libraries are going to sensors. Right, exactly, the digital highway. But that's a really good cool call out, right? Like our schools have been hopefully doing this. I think our schools got forced to do this when COVID happened. And all of a sudden, everything had to go online, and they realized what they didn't have in education, not just equipment, kind of forced the hand there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great stuff. I mean, the thing for me, why this is so tremendously important, Kris, is that so much of our population is not available to us to do this kind of work, the work that we know is important, and we can't build generational wealth in all of our communities unless we can do this work.
Yeah, or just healthcare. I mean, just as he was talking about, I was thinking like just healthcare on we take our app related to the Cleveland Clinic or whatever, right? Like my chart. Like, how do you do that if you don't have some kind of connectivity, right? You're still
and self-advocacy. I've talked to so many people that have been able to because of real stuff on the internet, advocate for themselves from a health perspective because they have access, because they can go. And then the doctors can't keep up with this. I mean, there's like nothing against doctors. But you're going to be the best person to understand your health, your current health. So being able to advocate for yourself, be able to research for yourself and say, you know what, here's the 15 things that I see out there, Doc. Let's figure this out together. And that's a much better model than we got right now.
Well, I know we're going to talk about history for a moment. I just a little bit of history for you and I.
Yeah.
He talked about the BlackBerry movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you and I have ever talked about the BlackBerry movie because it was our life there for a decade.
Yeah. Have you seen it? I haven't seen it yet.
I've seen it. It's actually got it has a lot of fact to it. And for those who don't know, I mean, Jim and I started work with the BlackBerry folks in 2004 and did so all the way through our way through, until they weren't anything anymore. And I knew, I spent time like with all the major players, right? So it's really interesting.
Kris, how many times were we there advocating for them? Like, listen, guys, I know this iPhone thing seems like a toy, but it's real. It's coming. Yeah. We have to change our tone, and they just couldn't get it.
Yeah, I was with Jim Basile, and he was showing the Pearl to CIOs in Akron, and it was like with some of our largest customers at the time, like Diebold and Temkin, And that was just on the cusp of actually doing video and other things on it. And what they just weren't getting was that what they were doing was going to be past, right? And people were talking about the iPhone at that moment as he's showing the Pro. He's like, nah, not a thing. It's like, oh, maybe not, buddy. But anyways, but I loved how Joshua was talking about it today, or on the podcast, was all about like, being in that entrepreneurial moment, being able to be the come from behind moment, right, and take it forward. And I think that spirit of entrepreneurialism is awesome.
It is the core entrepreneurial drive. It's like, this could be better. Right. We deserve better. Right. He says that we deserve, and to know that there is a better out there and ask new questions. It's like, the core to leadership is humility. Yeah. Like that. It's about getting it right, not being right. And I think people forget that. They like, oh, I felt so good feeling like I was right. And that's, but that's not how we get to the next place. So let's talk about some of the history, Kris. So let's go back to 2000, when I first got here. I got pitched by somebody. I got pitched all the time when people want doing startups. Hey, I got this idea, and the idea was to create a Wi-Fi all throughout Cleveland using the metro rail lines. The rapid transit rail lines as backhaul for internet to put up the very first version of Wi-Fi in the area you could get around the stops. Microwave backhaul along those lines. And we're comparing it to how we laid the telegraph lines back in the early days. Back when we were building the railroads, they also put telegraph lines out there. That's how we got, be able to communicate from East Coast to West Coast over telegraph. I thought that was a great idea, and we did so many really cool things to try to make that happen. We were talking to Cisco because there's going to be a lot of infrastructure, and then and I was also putting together this thing called Plan X for Cleveland, which is just really my early version of lay of the land. You're like, hey, what are all the cool things people are doing? Let's get everyone to start doing these things, and it's basically like stone soup. Everyone had great ideas, like, well, go do that cool idea, because now it's part of Plan X. And I had this thing, and I would go around and have interviews with people like, hey, here's all the cool things happening in Cleveland. How can you help? Right. And I met, and someone introduced me to Lev Gonick. And Lev Gonick says, Jim, I have this dream of solving the digital divide with all this dark fiber underneath the city. You're like, I think it's cool that you've got this microwave backhaul thing, but let me tell you, there's all this dark fiber.
Right. And Lev was the CIO at Case Western Reserve at the time?
Case was the CIO at Western Reserve, Case Western Reserve, and that's when he met our mutual friend who helped pull all that together, was part of our MCPC journey, Scott Rourke, and that's what set all this in motion. But it was all those things. I mean, it was part of Plan X was to have not only the infrastructure and talk about his infrastructure, but also to say what are the things we can go build on it, and what entrepreneurial journeys can we create by creating a Wi-Fi universe that's way ahead. And then we ended up. It was harder than we expected.
It always is.
And but one of the stories when I was back there doing all that work was relating it to early Cleveland. Well, not early Cleveland. Cleveland's been around for a long time, but one of the mayors here at the turn of the last century, a guy named Mayor Tom Johnson. 1906, he forms the world's first public electric utility, arguing that there's no way that we can build this economy without available electricity for everybody. Every business, every home needs electricity for us to move forward. Because up until that point, there already were places you could buy electricity from, 10, 20 years earlier, but it was touted as a luxury. Right. Not unlike what we see with internet now, right? But it's not a luxury. You can't participate. You need this. Yeah. And that was when I was working down in the Research Triangle in North Carolina. It was the same thing. It was at that point it was the governor was picking up on something that James Buchanan Duke did early on when he created Duke Energy after he created Duke University. He says, we're never going to get out of this agrarian society unless we make electricity available to everybody. And he got the idea from our mayor here, Tom Johnson, and that's why he created Duke Energy, which today is a giant, and was one of our clients when we had Vox Mobile, because they believe in their heart of hearts that people die when the power goes out.
Right. Yeah, I remember some of those meetings.
And so our our story converges like that with Brett Lindsay, who was on show number 27, because he got into all that and saw another, that this is everywhere. And that's what Everstream became. Like the taking advantage of the dark fiber everywhere.
One Cleveland to one community, and then one community spun out to become Everstream, and I think what eventually became Digital C, right?
Digital
like those assets are all kind of related.
Digital C is SNP, is another one in there.
That was another Brett Lindsay venture as well, and what I do think all that culminates together, and you go, well, gosh, if we're going to have and believe in this sense of community and those that shouldn't be left behind, right? Like this is the right. This is the right that we should all be working towards.
And I like the hey, this is the right thing to do argument, but I also think it's tremendously important for us as stewards of the local economy to know that we're leaving a lot of great assets behind,
right?
Within people. The most important part we have is people. We need people that are going to do great things. We have to be leaders building leaders building leaders, and the only way to do that is make sure everyone has access to all the best stuff. So, there's a pure, economics argument here. I don't have to be about right or wrong. It's economics say we should do it.
So we should do it.
We should do it. All right.
So great episode.
Great
Thanks,
episode.
Josh, for doing that. We appreciate it.
And so, Chris, this leads into our community flywheel conversation. So we've had some great stuff this last week saying that our community building is working. And not the least, we heard from our good friend Jeffrey about things that's going on that he's just finding out that the people he's introduced are starting to do things on their own, but in the name of the same stuff.
Yeah, and the core concept here that we've been promoting is like to do introductions of value from one human to another. And you don't always know the ripple effect of where that's going to go or what shape it's going to take form.
Right.
But what we're starting to do is you can start to hear and see others gathering together, others doing things. And I think Jeffrey's comment was, oh, shoot, I just lost who it is.
Andrew.
Andrew Rising, right?
Yeah.
And the formation of an event that they did, and that all the people there, you could trace back the lineage to lay of the land and introductions of value.
Absolutely.
Which is the flywheel, right? We want it to beget its own life.
You've got to believe it actually works. You've got to be playing the long game, right? And the infinite game. And if you really want to have and this is the thing, when I first came back to Cleveland, in 2000, after Seattle, it's like my realization was, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to make this as cool as possible, right? And what's missing? What can I do to help make it cool? And so starting that journey of let's get people to start working together in a way they're not yet right now. It's not because anyone's bad or anyone's stupid. It's just like it is hard work to pull this together. And sometimes we miss that building community is what makes it all work better for everybody else.
And I think
trust at scale, right?
Yeah, trust at scale. And people get lost in the creation of commerce and community and the intersection therein, meaning that, if I just set out to do commerce, right, I want to do transactions, business with people, and I don't invest in the community first, right, it's going to be a different climb. Yeah. And so I think the belief is that let's invest in the entrepreneurial community, the lay of the land, if you will, right?
Yeah.
We'll get there, right? And then the commerce will come.
So that's great stuff, Chris. So I want to close out with, I know you're working this week with 490 with the Exit Planners Institute. Is that right?
Exit Planning Institute. And it's such a gem that most people, it was purchased by the other Kris Snyder and his son Scott Snyder, and they moved it from Chicago. And I think it was 2014. It's now 5,000 exit planners. They're adding hundreds a quarter.
And this is all over the country, all over the world?
All over the country for sure.
Okay.
They might have some regional, beyond the United States reach as well. Anyways, the thought of this being that we're going to try to launch a partnership between 90. We think we've got a great template. They've got a BOS, if you will, business operating system called Value Acceleration Methodology, which looks a lot like others like EOS and Pinnacle.
Because they all come from the same stuff, right? The same original stuff.
Well, they come from a place of need.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's the thing that we really just need to remember.
Yeah, I think please, our advocacy, as always, folks, is you have to have an operating system. If you have an intentional operating system, you will have intentional results. If you have an accidental one, you'll have accidental results. And certainly, Exit Planning Institute believes that too. I know I spoke to those folks, and they've been working hard to make sure that their exit planners have a great way of getting from, hey, this is where you are. This is what a great exit looks like for you, and here's the gap, and you've got to fill that gap. And an operating system is almost always part of that journey. So that'll be exciting to see how that turns out, Chris.
I'm looking forward to it. We'll give you an update next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody. This has been Leyland Weekly Impact. I'm Jim Haviland.
I'm Kris Snyder.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.